let's get to our main review of the week for The Wild Robot.
After a shipwreck, an intelligent robot called Roz is stranded on an inhabited island. To survive the harsh environment, Roz bonds with the island's animals and cares for an orphaned baby goose.
Comes in at a runtime of a bit over 100 minutes, kind of at the sweet spot for keeping the attention span of young
Children.
kids, but also
Anyone.
For children, but also anyone. I think this one has an appeal for everyone, and you can kind of see that reflected in how it's been received so far. Again, this movie is out on VOD, I think on premium VOD. There's a crisp 4K version of it, and I think to the movie's benefit, I think what I appreciated the most about it is just like how stunning it looks. The colors really pop. All of the creature design is really neat and clean, and it's what you can expect from Dreamworks at this point. They're really good with how their stuff looks more often than not. And it comes from the director, Chris Sanders, who has also done other animated films for Dreamworks, mainly, I guess, the most notable one being How to Train Your Dragon, which is another really, really good animated film. He also co-directed Lilo and Stitch. He made The Croods in 2013 and The Call of the Wild. That's basically his only live action one that he did. But he seems to be not really interested in doing sequels. How to Train Your Dragon, The Croods, they all got sequels. And he kicks off the franchise here in a way that a lot of people connected with it. I mean, on Rotten Tomatoes, it's basically almost at 100%. It's at 98. On IMDb, it's an 8.3. On Letterboxd, it's a 4.3. It is in the top 250 at the moment, and it's one of the highest animated films of the year. And for, I think, a lot of people, it is the frontrunner to take home the Oscar early next year. It was reportedly made for a budget of $78 million. That is actually really, truly impressive for a movie that looks so clean. And I think when we looked at the trailers early in the year, Lachlan, we were concerned about how generic the story would ultimately end up feeling. And we'll get into that in a bit, that maybe I do still feel like it has some of those tendencies. Obviously, I'm in the minority here, but even on Metacritic, with the critics, it's an 85. That is really high for critics. It has also made its fair share of money in the theatrical window and has stayed there for a long time, kind of not getting completely out of all theaters. That's the benefit of being a family movie like this. They do tend to stay quite a bit longer. It has grossed domestically 123 million at the moment, 147 internationally, so that's 271 total. That's pretty healthy growth with that budget, so glad it had a moment to succeed. So now let's get into a full-on spoiler review. We can both recommend you go see this film. This is going to be one of the biggest films of the year. But yeah, Lachlan, what did you think?
I had a pretty good time with Wild Robot. Shockingly, wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was, and I guess that's maybe because of the unfortunate trend that Pixar has been going down. And halfway through this movie, I realized, oh shit, this is Dreamworks, which, if you even have a squiz at recent Dreamworks output. Now, I haven't seen Kung Fu Panda 4 yet, and I haven't seen Orion and the whatever it's fucking called, which also came out
that was this year? Oh, yeah.
Yes. But
totally forgot, yeah.
Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which was, I think, last year or the year before that, was absolutely fantastic. You had something like The Bad Guys, which wasn't like a terrible movie, but was still like entertaining as all hell. And I've heard decently good things about both Kung Fu Panda 4 and Orion and the Dark. I was a little bit shocked to see a new IP come out, especially in the year where they have Kung Fu Panda 4, and I feel like more people are praising this than Kung Fu Panda 4, which is super exciting.
Kung Fu Panda 4 was, in my eyes, but I've never been the biggest fan of the franchise, actually really, really bad. It felt like one of those straight to the streaming DVD type of sequels that they used to do.
Rough.
Yeah.
That kind of sucks. But with the Wild Robot, I won't lie, it actually took me a few minutes. I would say the first 10 minutes I didn't really jive with it, and I think I fell in love with the middle part of the movie, the middle part of this narrative where you have both Roz and Brightbill kind of coming together and forming this relationship. That is the part of this movie that I really enjoyed. There is a later part with a quote-unquote villain, which unfortunately is super late in the movie to even introduce as a sort of quote unquote villain. And I feel like the start of the movie, you get kind of rushed into it a little bit, and I feel like it could have probably been a little bit better if it could have breathed a little bit, or maybe they shortened down the middle section. And maybe this is the first time I'm kind of happy to suggest a slightly longer runtime where they could have had a longer introduction that doesn't feel like it's such a quick thing. But everything from the score to the visual appearance of this, and I think that's kind of where I want to start, Ewan, because since I guess
so
since
pretty.
Into the Spider-Verse, but Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, we spoke about this, had this really cool like hand-drawn technique to it. And this definitely has that same feeling, not to the same extreme nature that Puss in Boots: The Last Wish did, but I think it still has that really nice, like, it feels like it's hand drawn again. And I don't think it is. It is CG, but
Mhm.
obviously with the touch of an artist, but it feels like it's hand drawn, and I feel like you
Yeah.
get those sort of brush strokes you see on Roz, and you get that sort of like weird ink like fading out on the edges of like where the paintbrush would end on particular other characters. I really like the look of this film, and I think alongside that, I liked a lot of the moments. I thought it was like cinematically beautiful as well in terms of framing and how they kind of had the background set out, and especially when you had something like where Bright Bill is introduced to, you know, these other geese. The reeds are quite up and close, and you kind of feel the scale of everything really, really well.
Mhm.
Certain elements are kind of close up, and you get a bit more detail. And then when a character is kind of larger, such as Roz or even the bear, you know, the trees feel a little bit smaller than what it would be if you're taking it from the perspective of a possum. So I really liked how this film looked visually, and I feel like you could definitely take some screenshots and have some background wallpaper
Skipping through it
material.
right now, I can
It's
stop
gorgeous.
randomly. It's like, and there's also a couple of different animation style, like this one sequence where they like up like where she tells a story, right? And they switch up on how it looks. It's a bit more simplistic. They are like basically in a tableau aesthetic, so it's always like their full bodies in it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it looks like it's like even more hand drawn, that it comes from someone's imagination, and it kind of represents that perfectly. I think the art style of this from beginning to end, like I also like the
Mm.
fuzziness of the animals. Something about it, just like
Yep.
it kind of fits perfectly. And as her, like pretty, like she's white, right, from the her plastic or whatever, her mechanics, it's all white. And as it gets like mudded up and a bit dirty, it seems like she's fitting in a bit more. And all of that, like, I think is visually, I think this movie really excels in.
Mm.
Looking at the rest of the year from animation, I think this is definitely the prettiest animated movie of the year. Like even
Yeah.
bests like Inside Out. That obviously has a lot of money and a lot of talent behind it. I think this is like all of the character design I also really liked, especially like the fox also stands out a bit amongst the others because he's maybe also because he's like red, orange, like you kind of
Yeah.
that, but his fur feels a bit different than the others. Like it's a lot of like these subtle touches that ultimately like add up to really give you a quick and easy idea of who these characters are. Maybe at first, where's the story beats, how they don't really work together, and then how they kind of connect through like a common thing of survival that they have. So yeah, stylistically, I think this movie is top tier,
Mm.
really, really good.
And I think one of the best parts about it visually as well is the lighting of the scenes.
The
It's set
night moments, right?
outdoors. Oh,
Yeah,
gorgeous.
really good. Yeah.
There will always be a key source of light, even in like the dark moments at nighttime with the fire in their house, which just looks absolutely gorgeous. If they're outside, it's usually a golden hour of some kind, or there is some sort of like strong light coming from, whether it be, you know, a UFO, like, well, not a UFO, but like a spaceship, like beaming down, like it's like you can't see much. Like even that was gorgeous. So many beautiful moments of lighting, and then the end obviously has a lot of red to it, and that kind
Yeah.
of, you know, makes you feel a little bit of anxiety of drama happening, because red is obviously that kind of
Hey, you
color
got the
that does
contrast
that.
kind of right. Green, red, contrasting colors.
Mm,
It
bada
also
bing,
just on
bada
the color
boom.
profile as well. Yeah, It's just it's perfect.
And obviously, you said Roz slowly degrades, and even by the end, she's green. Like she's
Yeah.
got grass and green all over her, and she's fully evolved. So you got these really cool visual storytelling elements as well,
Mm.
that they have in this film. And again, I was kind of blown away by how pretty this was, and that is something that I don't really get to say much with even like Pixar movies, even Disney. Like Inside Out has some really good moments to it, but I feel like it just wasn't as breathtaking and as cinematic. And I guess we can probably thank Chris Sanders for this, because I think that both How to Train Your Dragon is absolutely spectacularly cinematic. And I think
Mhm.
it does a lot of those very similar story elements, and
Yeah.
even something down to the Croods, which was a while ago, even Lilo and Stitch. They have really cool elements to it, but I think How to Train Your Dragon is one of those other key animated movies that I remember just being like, yeah, that is a cinematic movie. I love that. And the only other ones I can really like come to my mind are something like The Incredibles. Like I remember like when I watched The Incredibles as an adult, I'm like, this is a movie. This is a movie. I don't give a fuck
Yeah.
that this is animated anymore. And I think that's where animation can kind of come in. Once you kind of are watching a movie and you're kind of forgetting that it's animation because of how engrossed you are from maybe even visual storytelling or just narrative, which we're going to get to narrative shortly anyway. But I feel like that is the best part about animation, when you forget that it's animation. I had that same feeling with Boy and the Heron and a lot of Studio Ghibli movies is you kind of forget that it's animation at a point, even though it's not hyper realistic either, which is something that they've all gone away from with this hand drawn style.
Yeah, I especially like final point on the visuals. I like the foreground elements that don't share the same type of detail work, but then it really
Yeah.
like that's the hand-drawn thing that really stands out. It like it just kind of works really well in this universe that they are establishing. And I think Sanders as a director is someone who's interested, I guess, in maybe that was just like coincidence, but stories about like unlikely friendships and like Lilo and Stitch and How to Train Your Dragon, like something that you don't expect, like with an alien, with a dragon, and I'm connecting with someone, and here something that is so artificial, connecting with nature and seeing that disconnect from the people who have sent her that to be right to like scout this out. It's just a simple story that also has like a point behind it narratively, but also thematically. Yeah, where do you want to go next? I see you put down music. Is that another like standout to you?
That one's a little quick point, because I felt that the score was really good. There's a needle drop halfway
Mhm.
through that's a little bit too poppy for me, when they're like doing the montage of learning how to fly.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
only moment where I was like, yeah, whatever. But I really did enjoy, especially towards the end. The music was just popping off for me. I was just joy. I was into it, and
Oh, yeah.
linked up
Did
with
the
that
movie get you to
visual.
cry? Did you cry?
No, no,
Ah, okay.
I'm a psychopath. You cried. Did you cry?
I no, I had well, this is more on the narrative side, so we'll get into it in a bit. It's
Okay.
also where my qualms with the movie start, where it got me to almost cry.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really enjoyed the score to the film. I think that we should just shout out who is the composer, Chris Bowers. Chris Bauer. Okay, here we go. Great composer for Green Book, Space Jam: A New Legacy, The Color Purple from last year. A
Mm,
lot of really big movies actually. But I,
yeah.
I I really enjoyed the score to this, and there are again some poppy needle drop songs. Well, not really needle drops, but like songs that come through, and I was just like, whatever. But
It's
I
yeah.
enjoyed the music overall.
I think that's the part of it where it becomes that sort of mold of the expected animated film, where you need those,
Mm,
illumination coded. The influence there is definitely felt from easy to make you feel something because it's a poppy good song.
yep.
Despite like the actual core of good moments being there in the story, it's an easy like catalyst to make you feel something, which is some like when you feel the same way as you said with like forgetting that something is animation because you're engrossed in the story. I feel the same way about music and the score. Oftentimes when I don't notice something happening, it's better if I notice a sting coming to like have a sad moment, a happy moment, or whatever. It feels manipulative when I'm picking up on it. When I don't pick up on it, I'm getting manipulated, but in a good way that I'm not noticing, right? So some of the to maybe go into the story, some of the I guess, beats that the story takes in the second half. I think I really like the first half quite a bit more, where it has like the story involved. Maybe we start from this from the beginning before we jump to like something later on that I don't like as much. It's the arrival there, making connections. I think something that really stands out is the humor, and how, like, it is kind of just like pointing out the deadly reality of this place. And I think that kind of is in a nice contrast to what the movie is like ultimately like at the core about, of this all living together in harmony. But you got the harsh realities of like nature as well still in there, propped up as like punchlines often. Did you connect with the humor? Did it get you to laugh, or were you more invested in the emotional storyline?
I don't think I laughed. I think I chuckled a few times. I didn't really find much of the humor funny. I think the standout joke for me was early on, where the possums are introduced and all of the kids start to die, and then one dies slowly and is like meningitis, it's a slow death, and then they all start naming all of the things, like all the other baby possums start naming all the reasons that they died.
Yeah.
That was funny. And then like 2 seconds later, there's a joke about the mum being a mother to 7, and then one of the baby possums is like murdered off screen. You can hear it, you don't see it, and that made me laugh because I was like, "Fuck, that's dark." Because she
Yeah.
goes,
It's a pretty
the
dark
line is
humor.
something like, "I'm a mother of 7," and then like the sound happens, and she goes 6, and it's a full-time job or whatever. And I was like, that is such a quick joke. And then like the baby's fine, like they bring it back afterwards. But I think that was the highlight of the humor for me. It never really went back to that dark joke ever again. And I think I was hoping for a little bit more of that, but obviously it's a kids movie, so I can't really expect that. So yeah, I never really thought the humor got better than probably the first like 20 minutes. And then I was kind of like okay with it, because I actually enjoyed where the narrative went for the most part. But obviously you don't at some point. So did you laugh? Did you chuckle? Did you feel like you're at a stand-up comedy show?
Yeah, so I got to see this at the like trade show in Locarno that has, instead of, usually I'm often at press screenings, sometimes in public screenings. This one was for like the cinema owners and everyone that chased it in it. Like I watched Anora there again, and I was definitely the one who had the best time in the whole theater with Anora. I feel like a lot of people were like not vibing with it 100%. Maybe it's because it's a bit of an older audience that was there. And with this one, I think the love was there all around, and I could kind of feel everyone have a good time with it. And I felt the same. And I was really, really surprised up until like about an hour in. And this is obviously not like now where we would say, here's your spoiler warning. I think up to this point, we haven't really touched on anything like super specific yet. But I really enjoyed that moment when he flies off. And it's basically a goodbye between those two. And obviously, you don't end the movie around the 1 hour mark. It's also really sad, that moment. And I was like, damn, that's such a good moment between these two. And maybe you have a moment where, I don't know, like you see their separate stories and they connect again. And that's the end of the film. And it's about like an hour, 10 minutes long, really short film. But then the beats that what you just said, like the humor doesn't get better than this, and the dark humor and all that. I think from that point on, it is so much just like, here's an action beat of like them. Oh, this is like, I don't know. It seems so generic from there on out. Of like, okay, the rest of the story is about like how it's all happy go together. We're all a big family. When that wasn't the core focus of it before. It was obviously to find yourself, to be accepted, to excel despite like the harsh realities of life and not fitting in, all of that. And then it just kind of makes it all about like the thing of, here's one person who changes everything for the better. And to me, that is so generic from the story that is propped up before, of like just the individual story of someone trying to fit in and trying to find the core self that needs to have a belonging within a group that makes sense, in a species sense here, and understanding that, and then letting go. And then it completely backtracks everything it says about letting go, to me at least. And I think a lot of people don't like, I talked about this with Kevin as well, and he said like he completely disagrees. He thinks like all of the beats that come later on make it a stronger film. I just was disappointed that like I loved the movie that much. It got me to like almost like I think a tear or two came out when it flies off and you see the sad like robot just like propped up on the hill looking as he's flying away. And then it does the whole thing where it feels like it cheated me out of getting a real emotion out of me, and it was like, oh well, you need to have the good happy ending for a kids film. When I thought that's me who has this favorite like animated film be Graves of the Fireflies, right? So I like the miserable, and people aren't like that. So maybe, you know, it was just my expectations that I had set up for me within the first hour of the film that were then mismatched by what preceded it, and I read the film wrong with my expectations that I set for myself. Yeah, I don't know. What did you think about like the whole latter half of the film, and that like do you see like a difference between the first part and the second half of it, like in what it focuses on?
I totally get your point. I could see this movie ending at that moment where Bright Bill leaves, and because like that shot of like Roz running through the forest and then just the geese all in the sky, I was like, fuck, that's
It's so
that's
pretty.
a good shot, so
Yeah, I
pretty.
know. Got
And
me to
like
cry.
that's a good conclusion. And I thought maybe the narrative could have just been that, because after that it becomes all about like, you know, helping out one another and this sort of a different narrative to the first half. And then obviously you have that robot that's introduced, the villain robot that's introduced, and
Mm,
I don't know why they introduced that, because it seems like it's two different movies.
yeah.
I really don't like the second half of this movie as much as the first half. I feel like it's not as
God damn it, Lachlan, we agree too much, man.
yeah, no, but like it's not to the degree of like the same as you. I just
Yeah.
didn't think that it felt like two different movies, and it felt like, oh,
Right.
okay, that's a bit unfortunate, especially because there's not really much in the first half that sets up anything in the second half, and there's not a lot of stuff in the second half that's set up in the first half, right? So
Yeah.
you don't really have this clear separation of stories of Bright Bill leaving. Like you have a fucking you literally have three objectives. They just three acts. Like, just do that. Don't make a fourth act, because that's what it feels like. You feel like
Yeah.
you've got him swimming, you've got him eating, and then you've got him flying. That should be the end. And then him leaving and like saying goodbye is not a bad thing. And then you can have a sequel be this, because it feels like this second story should be more of a sequel. And they obviously set up a sequel as well.
It feels like them reuniting, right? The typical thing that a second movie, especially animated, starts off of, where we have like the grace period of like, hey, here's everyone that you know from the first one and what they've been up to in the meantime. They've all become friends and whatever, and now they gotta face something that is attacking them. It's very much what they do. Isn't like the second How to Train Your Dragon basically that? It kind of feels like that, and this is all just that in one movie. Yeah, I think to me, like the reception this has had, right? The ratings of like almost a 4.5 on Letterboxd on average, over an 8 on IMDb. That type of stuff I was thinking, damn, this is one of the best animated films of the year, one of the best that I've seen in years. And then it just kind of let me down because I felt it ended up being really generic to have those like action beats towards the end where everyone comes together. And I thought it was still like, not that it was so out there in its first hour, but it was just so solid. And then it kind of threw that away for me a bit too much. But I see when people like wouldn't agree with that at all. But so I'm like, once you hear my rating, it is a bit low comparatively. But it's just because I think the first half is like really up there as like a 4 stars, and then it just kind of comes down for me slowly. You touched on it, the sequel. We haven't talked about the cast yet, by the way. It's like really impressive, like Nuputa Nyong'o,
Oh, yeah.
Pedro Pascal, Kit Connor, Bill Nye, Stephanie Sue, Matt Berry, Win Rams, Mark Hamill, Catherine O'Hara. There's a lot of really great people who can do great voice acting in it as well. And I think for most of it, they completely disappeared in their roles. Like to me, no one really stood out, which is a compliment to give that we don't notice who it is, I think, in service of the story and the characters. But yeah, sequel. You think they're gonna do a sequel? I mean, it did well, a super well reception. I wouldn't be surprised.
Well,
But
it's done fine at the box office, but literally she talks about how her job is unfinished. And that is clearly setting up a sequel in my eyes. And then you kind of see them reunite together. Yeah, the actual ending of the movie is a little bit funky. I think that final like shot between Bright Bill and Jaws is not super necessary, but I felt that the coming together of the animals is kind of cute, like this little island. Yeah, there's gonna be a sequel. There's gonna be a Wild Robot 2 Electric Boogaloo, for sure.
Literally electric boogaloo, but it's in the igloo that is like the where she's caught in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like to me, it does like that beat one too many times of going back to that facility. That it obviously wants to have an even bigger set piece around that.
Yeah.
And that's why like it feels like a weird mix between like one or two movies in this one. But again, you can check the film out yourself. I don't know if you have anything else to add other than our rating so far.
No, yeah, I'm good.
But yeah, I ended up giving this one a 3 out of 5. Again, like I said, it was a bit higher on at some point for me. It's definitely closer to like, a 7 out of 10 than it is to a 5 out of 10. But yeah, for me, it's currently not sitting in the like contenders for the best animated films of the year. But yeah, I've seen about like 30 or 40 animated films, and it's definitely one of the better ones, but just like not in my top 3, top 5. But yeah, what about you, Lachlan?
I'm giving it a 3.5 out of 5. I liked it a decent amount. I think I liked it a little bit more than you. I wasn't too fussed about the whole shift and change in the narrative halfway through.
Yeah.
Because I was like, it's a kids' movie. They got to have a bigger act, big finale. But yeah, I thought it was fine.
And yeah, I would be remiss to not mention that this is one of like Kevin's favorite films of the year. I think he gave it like a 9 out of 10. He really, really loved it. For all of those who feel like, hey, we gave this one a bit of a low rating for what you think the movie deserves, then definitely let us know what you thought of it and what you liked the most about it. Do that with the other films we discussed as well. Lachlan, if you were to pair this film up with another film, to go right after it, we called it a double feature. What would you select?
I think I made the joke about the 2009 animated movie Robots, but I think I would have to pick
iRobot.
I was gonna pick Wall-E. I actually thought about iRobot at one stage, but I think it was gonna be Big Hero 6 because that was also the last time I was genuinely surprised by a movie, and that was a Disney movie, more so, and I had a lot of fun with it, even though it wasn't anything crazy. And I think there are issues with it in terms of plot and narrative, but
and marketing, yeah,
I had a good time and surprise with it. So similar to this, I was surprised by it. That's Big Hero 6.
It's funny that like that movie I think goes by Big Hero 6, but some international releases had it as Baymax just because they knew that was a selling point for the film.
Yeah.
But yeah, we talked about it. You mentioned it in the intro, The Iron Giant being one of my favorite animated films. I think it's also one of yours. And I thought at some point we discussed The Iron Giant. I forget if that like review that we did for it ever saw the light of day. The Iron Giant, a great film that I kept mixing up. Everyone I've talked to about the Wild Robot can attest to this, that I've almost said the Iron Giant or like the Iron Robot or the Wild Giant at some point. Like I just keep mixing those up just because they're like eerily similar, I guess. That one also has like a core theme to itself. It's a bit tighter in the narrative, but it obviously isn't like as pretty, but something about that is super interesting, like early CG animation coming in, and this one being like the next generation of beautiful artistry matched with that type of possibilities that you have with animating something on computers and not just hand drawn, but still having that feel. So yeah, I think that's a great double feature pick.